I want to highlight something that most of you may not be aware of. It's just another one of these fraudulent, phony, quote-unquote, moderate Democrats. And they're running as independents. Oh, I'm not with one party or another. I don't do what Obama tells me to do. Only 97% of the time. So this fraud, Mark Warner, he was governor of Virginia. He's been a senator. He's running for re-election. He's trying to tie his opponent, Ed Gillespie, to Enron, of all things. Enron. Meanwhile, Obamacare's Enron times 1,000,000, putting people out of work, destroying job opportunities, destroying somebody's health care, their basic needs. So over at AmericanCommitment.org, Philip Kirkman's a very bright guy. And let me tell you about Mark Warner. You know, I tell you about these different stories as I see them, the corruption, just so people understand, particularly young people out there, how awful it has become in Washington, D.C. The Washington Post, ladies and gentlemen, is reporting that Democratic U.S. Senator Mark Warner of Virginia admits he implied he would deliver a federal judgeship to Phil Puckett's daughter. Well, who's Phil Puckett? Well, he was a Democrat in the state Senate in Virginia. If Puckett would agree not to resign, because you see, Puckett did resign, and by resigning, the Republicans took over the state Senate in Virginia. And as the Washington Compost reported it, the son of a former Virginia state senator has told federal investigators that U.S. Senator Mark Warner discussed the possibility of several jobs, including a federal judgeship, for the state senator's daughter in an effort to dissuade the state senator from quitting the evenly divided state Senate. Warner was part of a string of high-powered Virginia Democrats who in early June pressed then-state Senator Philip Puckett not to go through with plans to give up his seat in the middle of a bitterly partisan battle over health care. A Warner spokesman acknowledged Friday that the conversation occurred, but he emphasized the senator had made no explicit job offer. Oh, a he says, she says, or in this case, a he says, the phony says. Now writes Kirkman at AmericanCommitment.org, unfortunately for Senator Warner, the law does not require the job offer to be explicit for it to be criminal. Indeed, even an indirect suggestion of an official act, like a federal judicial nomination in exchange for political activity, is illegal under 18 United States Code, Section 600. Quote, is this boring, everybody? I could tell you about the great fried shrimp I ate a couple nights ago, and it was good. Whoever directly or indirectly promises any employment, position, compensation, contract, appointment, or other benefit provided for and made possible in whole or in part by any act of Congress or any special consideration in obtaining any such benefit to any person as consideration, favor, or reward for any political activity, it goes on. In other words, this is considered a type of bribe. A type of bribe. There's a federal investigation. This is much worse than what they convicted the former Republican governor McConnell of. McDonnell, I should say. And his wife. Now we'll see if this U.S. attorney in Virginia is as aggressive with Mark Warner as he was with Bob McDonnell. Even if Warner's job offer was less than explicit, it seems clear he admitted to at least indirectly promising special consideration for a federal judgeship, possible only by an act of Congress, as reward for political activity, in this case Puckett, State Senator Puckett, reversing his announced resignation. Not coincidentally, former longtime Mark Warner communication director Paul Reagan also attempted to deny making the same type of offer until he was caught on tape by the Washington Compost. George Mason University School of Law Assistant Dean Richard Kelsey explained that this is no minor infraction. Quote, the buying and selling of political seats and appointments is usually a ticket to the penitentiary. For most moral lay people, this type of offer is the essence of a bribe. Unfortunately, politicians see this as business as usual. And he goes on. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Mark Warner stands accused of offering, or at least insinuating, the offer of a federal judgeship in exchange for a political favor. It's under federal investigation. This Washington Compost story broke at the exact time I left the air on Friday, Mr. Producer. 2 minutes before 9 p.m. Eastern. Or I would have been all over it on Friday. So even though the Washington Compost reported it, because probably their back was against the wall, they dropped it late Friday night, also avoiding this program. And I don't consider that coincidence. I'm not bragging. I just think it was strategic. So Mark Warner's running these ads that Ed Gillespie is tied to Enron 4 billion years ago, and his firm made $700,000 from Enron. Well, you know, early on, ladies and gentlemen, it wasn't known that Enron was a corrupt enterprise. That's the whole point. It concealed it in its SEC filings. It cooked the books. So that in and of itself is not unethical activity. That is, having represented them or the firm representing them. It depends on a lot of details. But the firm wasn't charged with anything. Gillespie wasn't charged with anything. Here we have Mark Warner using his position as a United States Senator, intervening in a matter involving the state Senate of Virginia, insinuating that he would offer a federal judgeship or other jobs to a member of the state senator's family if he would reverse course and not resign. Now, is that a moderate Democrat? Is that a left-wing Democrat? Or just a crook? Or potential crook? Or an alleged crook? Or whatever? We talked about Kay Hagan in North Carolina. His family made an enormous amount of money off of the stimulus program / green energy programs. Amazing how quickly they set up operations. Amazing how when people were watching it, they changed the name of the organization. But the family pocketed a considerable amount of money. We talked about Little Dick Durbin, the land of Lincoln and the land of Little Dick Durbin, Illinois. Little Dick Durbin's wife, spouse, are we allowed to call her spouse? I don't know what we call people anymore. She's a lobbyist, I believe, for Kraft Foods, but I could be wrong. I'm doing this by memory. But whatever. And some of the spending that took place by Congress just happened to benefit her client. Sleazy. Absolutely sleazy. And there's more. There's more of this going on. And I have to laugh, by the way, at John Cornyn, the senior senator from Texas. He tweeted out the other day that this guy, Pressler, this guy is a whack job. He's running as an independent in South Dakota. South Dakota, Pressler is a whack job. You may not like the Republican rounds, but this Pressler is cuckoo for coconuts or Cocoa Puffs. Oh, that he lives in Washington, D.C. That's what Cornyn tweeted out, and I thought to myself, I guess that would be like Pat Roberts, Mr. Producer. Or it would be like Mary Landreiu or the former Senator Lugart. I wonder how many of these senators and congressmen live in and around Washington, D.C. I don't mean as second homes, but I mean as primary homes and barely go home. I think this happens a hell of a lot more than we know. Maybe some intrepid reporter. Are there any left? We'll look into this. I doubt it. But Mark Warner, the senior senator from Virginia, Mark Warner, appears to have insinuated that he would exchange an effort to get a former state senator's daughter, a federal judgeship or other position if he would reverse course and not resign. And they could try and spin this. They can try and paint it. They can try and do whatever they want. If the effort was made directly or indirectly, it's a federal offense.